Yeah, so like the one that we played with auditions.
Oh.
Yeah, except their cards they have codenames. No, not codenames. It was like you draw cards and each card have like a different thing, and there's specific cards. Huh?
Just need to make sure it's recording. Okay, amazing. Hi, everyone. Oh, okay, someone raised their hand. I'm actually not that familiar with how to use this system. I think best is probably if you need to say something during the webinar. So you can use the raise hand function and then you can just unmute yourself and talk, because I can't see the screen and I can't see any type questions. So if anyone has like a non-working microphone, then you can just probably type and then ask someone to read it out. So Sophie, did you have something that you wanted to say?
Nope, did not know how I did that. Just lowered my hand just now, so the hand is down.
All right, no worries. Okay, Zoom is new for hopefully not all of us. Hopefully some of you made it to the performance management webinar the other week as well. So awesome, let's get a start. Hi everyone, thanks for attending the webinar. It was a lot of fun to prepare all this content for all of you, and I really hope that it's useful and you get something out of it. So let's go into, oh, my screen will go next. Amazing. So who am I? For those of you I haven't met yet, my name is Jessie. I'm the current MCP of AIESEC in Australia. And I too, once upon a time, was an LCP. So I was the LCP of AIESEC in Melbourne, and I had a few MC roles in between them. And here I am back in AIESEC in Australia. And as you can see from the photo, I am actually a dumpling. My face is one of the roundest faces you will ever see. So I have a nickname, which is Resting Dumpling Face, modified from Resting Bitch Face, and this is my identity. So I'm very happy to introduce myself to all of you. And firstly, this question, which is, how are you feeling? Because I know for some of you, you accepted your nominations a few days ago. For some of you, it was literally just last night. So can we get a couple of people just sharing how they actually feel at the moment? Anybody at all? How are you feeling? Oh my goodness. I can't see the chat, people. I want to join in as well. So what are people saying?
Amazing. Fucking excellent.
Oh, lovely.
Really, really hungry. Terrified.
Mm-hmm. All right. That's a good cross-section of feels at the moment. And I don't blame you all. I mean, for all of us on the East Coast, it's like 9:30. So fair enough if you're a bit hungry. For that person who said they were terrified, fair enough as well. It's a bit of a interesting process that you all have lying ahead of you. And that's exactly why I decided to run this webinar tonight. So for the agenda, what we have, and this is what I posted in the group earlier, we're going to go through a bit of context, because to do any role in AIESEC, you need to understand where the organization is at the moment. We're going to talk about actually what are the LCP non-negotiables in the whole ecosystem of AIESEC. So how is everything put together, and what is an LCP actually responsible for? Because all of you kind of know that you've got an LCP there. You know that they generally like lead your LC and AIESEC in Australia, except what do they actually do? This idea of pendulum versus progress. And if you remember nothing else from tonight, nothing else, please keep this part in mind, because you can always look back at the slides. The election process, about bringing out your best, and my favorite part, which is burning questions. So that bit is a chance for all of you to ask the things that are on your mind and be able to better prepare yourself with those burning questions that are there. So here were the expectations. There will be a fair bit of talking, because there's just a bunch of stuff that I want to introduce to all of you. And that's why I've left the time at the end for all of you to ask your questions. There's a lot of data on the slides. That's why I linked the slides a few hours earlier, and we're not going to go through it. So you can always ask me or an MCVP or whoever makes sense a question about the data. We're not going to actually go in depth into it though, because there's just not enough time in this hour that we have. So yeah, is everyone cool with what's about to happen? And remember, please, I can't see the chat. So just let me know if you're all good.
Yes.
Jesse.
Yay, thank you. Love it when people unmute. Thank you. Let's get started. So the first thing is why do I need to actually know these things? And let me just ask you this. Let's forget about AIESEC for a millisecond, even though you're all here because you want to run for LCP. And just think about what is the wish you actually want to fulfill for the world. And even though this question, it sounds so grand, it's like, oh my God, like, yeah, I want to end world hunger or something like that. Really, it doesn't have to be so grand or dramatic as that. And I do want to hear a couple of answers for people about, like, what do you actually wish for the world? And the second part of this is because we forgot about AIESEC for a millisecond, then let's think about how do we actually want to fulfill this through AIESEC? So who wants to share? Anybody at all? Hello?
To fulfill for the world through AIESEC to push everyone to engage with different places and go to what they want.
Nice. Thank you. So I also want to share my wish because what I discovered through working throughout AIESEC and just really thinking about what my values are, something I really value is equity. And by that, I mean just this idea that if we give everyone in the world equal opportunities, that some people will still ultimately lose out. So I'm interested not in equality yet because we're not on the same playing field. And I want people to be able to start from the same position before we can start from equality. And I see AIESEC as being able to do that because it gives a platform for people who maybe have not had certain privileges in their life to have a chance to really understand who they are, best use their strengths, and be able to move forward with that. It's okay if when I ask this question, nothing super tangible comes to mind. And doing this process, it actually gives you a chance to reflect on what you want to see. Because at the end of the day, AIESEC doesn't exist for the sake of AIESEC. We're here to fulfill something to the world. And with AIESEC and with the position of LCP, with great power comes great responsibility. And LCP is a very, very powerful position because essentially what you're entrusted to do is that you're entrusted to drive AIESEC to make PNF real. And I bold that real because PNF can be such a nice idea and nice concept. And many, many people can want it, wish for it, wish that other people will do it. And here we are in an organization that gives us a chance to do something about it. That yes, doing exchange and developing leadership exchange through exchange is not the only way to actually make PNF real. It's the way that AIESEC chooses. And when you're LCP, you get to lead a local committee and you get to lead AIESEC in Australia to be able to do that. Why we need to know all these things is one, for all of you to have the right expectations, a better understanding of what you're really getting yourselves into, to make grounded decisions, because even though we want to fulfill like the best wishes for the world, we really need to understand where AIESEC is at in order to do that and to be able to have a laser focus in doing it. Focus is something which you only realize in hindsight sometimes how powerful it is. Without focus, even if you have all the good intentions and you want to do a million good things, it's very hard to really succeed and strive for success in like an ultimate outcome if you don't have that focus there. So understanding data and context is everything in order to be able to do this. So let's have a quick look at global context. Some of you might have seen this sign around. It's been on a lot of slides during conferences. It was the team stand of AIESEC International in 1617. They were the first team to introduce this idea that they're not only generation 1617, they're generation 1620. Because right now, AIESEC is in a stage of trying to make the organization better in a very specific way by the year 2020. And more on that later. This race to be real and alive to fulfill is the current stand of AI 1718. It's this idea that they've raised that we have 70 generations of AIESEC behind us, of people who came before us to build the organization into what it is today. And we're alive. We are really doing things with what we have to fulfill our promise of what we need to do and continuing the trend of generation 1720, this idea that we're still striving towards AIESEC 2020. 1617 had these three things in mind. And the interesting thing is that 1718 decided to actually continue two of them, this idea of courage and ambition and customer obsession, because those things don't only take 1 year to solidify or 1 year to actually fulfill. And with that, wanting to include inclusion, integration, and humility into the way that we strive forward as an organization for this year. Some quick numbers for all of you. In 1617, so the MC terms of AIESEC, they kind of start in the middle of the year and then they end in the following July. So we had 121 entities around the world that have AIESEC. Out of all of this, we had 82,330 total realizations in 1617, which represents 7.59% growth on the previous year. This I found really intriguing because actually out of that 121, the top 10 entities do over half, just over half of the exchange of AIESEC overall. And can you imagine that if other entities in AIESEC can actually build themselves to contribute more to this number, how many more leadership development through exchange experiences we would create? I have to be honest with you that for most of my AIESEC career, numbers have not excited me. And for all of you who were there at NewCon, you might recall that I said that I'm not someone who's very excited by numbers. What I am excited about is leadership development. And it really excites me to think that there were 70,000 members who were doing over 82,000 exchanges in just 1 year alone. And just thinking about what we can achieve in this upcoming year. This is pretty interesting too, because there are global surveys released, and this question, what is the one thing you want your team leader to improve? Around the world, these were the top 3 answers. Members in AIESEC want people to, their team leaders to coach them to achieve their goals, want team leaders to become better at one-to-one conversations, to do feedback, performance appraisals, coaching, and to get better at tracking their performance as well. I show you this just to let you know the general state around AIESEC, and you can have a think about what this actually means in your local entity and what this means in Australia. And this is also super interesting because out of our membership, IXP, Integrated Experiences, for those of you who don't know, represents 16% of our membership who've actually gone. 37%, and this 37% includes myself, want to go on an IXP. And almost half of our members do not want to take an IXP, which means that almost half of our members around AIESEC don't actually want to experience the product for themselves. And what does this mean for us? What do you know about your LC, your region, AIESEC in Australia? How many people actually believe in the product enough that they've gone on exchange or actually want to take an exchange? Okay, cool. So Awesome. This is our regional context. If my computer will stop. Okay, cool. So for those of you who don't know, the region that we're in AIESEC, and there's 4 around the world, we're in Asia Pacific, which is the largest region in the world in terms of both external population as well as the amount of exchange that we do within AIESEC. In 1617, we sent 244 EPs overseas, and actually 60% of them go to Asia Pacific. These are some numbers that I want to show you all. That actually in 1617, and I might ask people to mute when you're not talking because there's a little bit of echo in the background. So if you can just do that, thank you so much. So we actually delivered 41% less leadership experiences than we did in the previous year. And as you can see over here, RMIT was actually the only local entity that grew in this time period, which means every other LC did less exchange than they did in the previous period.
Jesse,
Yep.
the screen is blurry, so we can't really see anything. Can you try to like close it and turn it on again?
Sure. Let me exit. Is my screen getting clearer as I exit?
No.
Okay. Okay. So maybe I'll just go from... Do all of you have access to the slides? Okay, thanks. Cool. So you can follow along then here, just so it's a little bit clearer. We're on slide number 19. So the things that I wanted to show is that I've actually highlighted in Asia Pacific, Hong Kong and Nepal. Hong Kong, for those of you who know it, is actually tiny. They have less than 1/3 of our population. And in 1617, they did 135% more exchange than Australia. Nepal is not too far behind. Their GDP, like after adjustments per capita, is only 5% of Australia's. And yet they do only 64 less exchanges than us. This is what I want all of you to know. Sorry?
It didn't make any difference if you made it smaller, so I may as well just go back to the bigger screen because that was actually a little bit easier to read too.
Oh, okay. All right. So I think you just, I'm not sure what you want to do. I'll share it here. Sorry.
Yeah, we have the slides open. I just can't tell now which slide we're on.
Everyone should just open their Google Drive.
Yeah.
Yeah. If that's easier, then maybe you can just follow one from the Google Slides. Like, I'm happy to make it full screen still. So just make sure you're kind of following along. We're on slide number 20 right now. So why I'm showing all this data is not because it's our rankings that are important. Like, it's not about our rankings at all. And it's not for us to feel shitty about it, because even though we did deliver less exchange experiences, it's about knowing what our potential is. Sorry, can we mute again? It's quite loud in someone's background. It's like a vacuum. Please, thank you. Okay. Awesome. So now we're going to move on to Australia. So again, for those of you at NewCon, you might have seen this slide, which kind of summarizes what we're here to actually do, what our purpose is, what are the behaviors that we're looking at, this idea of 540 completes that we want to achieve this summer, the wigs and also the metrics that we're actually striving to deliver in order to get to this 540. And these are just some numbers, which again, I'm not going to go very in depth. And what you see here is actually like a bit of a compilation of how healthy LCs are, which is taking into account things like the state of finance, the state of talent, and as well as the exchange metrics. Hi, can we mute, please? Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Someone's still not on mute. Okay, cool. So this just gives you a bit of a snapshot about where LCs are at. And one thing that I want to demonstrate, and if you're on the Google Slides, I actually invite you to go back to the Zoom window for a second, because I want to show you like step by step how LCP is actually connected to everything else. And it's a bit easier than looking straight at the Google slide, because that's a little bit confusing if you don't follow it. So if you look at the Zoom slide, here you are as LCP and the whole ecosystem of AIESEC. The people who are in your direct charge are your LCVPs. you're primarily responsible for making sure that your LCVPs can perform their functions, develop, do their jobs, that sort of thing. For a lot of you, you might also have management boards or leadership teams within your LCs, and that's where the TLs come in. And ultimately, together with your members, that's where you form an LC. And for a lot of you, this is the only thing that you would have experienced so far. As an LCP, you also work directly with the MC. And there are also subcommittees that LCPs are part of, and not only are part of, they actually help to chair and drive the subcommittees. And together, these responsibilities in this group form something called the National Leadership Team, which is responsible for making decisions for AIESEC in Australia. And an LCP is just as much a member of the NLT as they are the leader of their LC. This is for background information that EST are working with MC to support initiatives that directly go to LCVPs. We have something called the regional office. So there's a director. Hello? Someone's microphone is a bit, you sound a bit like a high-pitched robot. I'm sorry. I don't know what you're saying. If you can type and someone else can read it out for you, then I think that might be best. So I'll just keep going for now. There's a regional office who works with AI, and AI also work directly with the MC. There are global boards and there's explanations. It's all good. And there are also global support team who work with AI. This is just a bit of a snapshot about how AIESEC actually works. It's not a pyramid. It's not a neat like circle or anything. It's quite connected, interconnected, as you can see. And the most important thing that you need to know is how the LCP kind of ecosystem part works. These are the measures of success that were inside the application booklet. You've got two roles. One is for your LC to make sure that you can achieve your completes, that your LC can actually grow sustainably, and that at least 80% of your members are learning, contributing, and developing from being part of the LC, that they are part of the achievement, and that you are the one who's ultimately making sure that you're driving it. So leader of the LC is really about focusing on making sure that your EB members are performing, because LCPs, they don't directly go, hey, I'm going to IM this member and make sure they're performing. You know, you've got your TLs, you've got your VPs. So you need to make sure that your EB members are doing the best jobs they can, being the best versions of themselves that they can be in order to do that. The other interesting part of the job is that you're also part of the national leadership team. So this is something that oftentimes people don't think about when they become LCP, which is you're not only responsible for your LC achieving, you're actually responsible for every other LC being able to achieve as well, by making sure that you're supporting and being supported by other members of the NLT, whether it's MC or LCPs. Because if you look at, for example, this part, Sustainable Financial Growth of AIESEC Australia Limited, this is the company portion of AIESEC, and all of your LCs are actually income earners for it. So every time you create impact, you do exchange, that helps to keep AIESEC as a company in Australia sustainable and be able to make sure that we continue to be able to work like that. So those are the two key responsibilities that you have as LCP. These are some other things. So directions of the LC, decision-making according to the AIESEC way, according to AIESEC 2020 roadmap, to fulfill team standards, the plan, the tracking, the one-to-ones, everything with your EB team, ensuring that your LC has goals and plans to achieve the goals. So this one, sometimes LCPs might say, oh, yes, my VP needs to work on this. Actually, as LCP, you're the one who needs to make sure that your EB actually has plans for things, even if they're the ones who set and crunch the numbers. Budget co-creation, compendium compliance, and finally, if your LC is a full member, that means you get to have a vote in national decision-making. And if your LC doesn't have a vote, you have the right to a voice to actually say something about it. These are the things I'm not going to go through in depth. I put them in the slides because I really believe they can help you in your applications. This is how we're doing in August. And some of these circled are the LCs which are performing the highest in terms of numbers and also in terms of actually achieving their goals right now. So if that's one of your LCs, really find out what's working for your LC. If you're from another LC, make sure you ask these LCs what they're actually doing. Same thing with conversions. This is for IGT. So it's very color-coded very easily. So you can actually see what LCs are performing well in different stages. And we come to the point where this is what I said. Even if you remember nothing of what I said before, that's fine. I really would like for everyone to be able to keep this in mind, which is the pendulum swing in AIESEC. So oftentimes when we evaluate our LCs, just because it's part of human nature, it's very easy to focus on what we think is not good in our LCs, what we think is not so great. So this is an example, like, oh, last year it was too serious. Let's make it more fun, right? It's like, okay, I feel like LCMs were like too boring, or maybe meetings, you know, not enough dance, whatever it might be. So I want to do something to turn it around. And the intention is good because it's like, yeah, you want to make AIESEC better. You want to do something to change. Or it's like, there was too many numbers last year. Like, I'm not excited by numbers. Let's make it all about the people. And then when the LC might have had some strengths in actually doing operational tracking, then you're like, nah, this was too much. Let's try and do something else. All the while we go back and forth, because that's what a pendulum does, right? It swings back and forth instead of forward. Because sometimes, yes, there's things in AIESEC that need to change. And when we go about changing them, we can often forget what was really good in AIESEC. What was really good that our LC did. And in trying to change it so that it's 180 degrees different, it's very easy for us to leave behind what were the good parts of AIESEC and not be able to bring them forward. Or we see, okay, I see that there's 10 things that are wrong with this LC and I want to change all of them. That sometimes we just need to pick the biggest changes that are going to make the biggest difference and just go with that. And just know that it's better to have a better outcome rather than say, oh, I want to go ahead and change everything. Because we are here to bring AIESEC forward. We don't want to be a pendulum. We don't want to swing back and forth when we could actually be moving forward. And an AIESEC that moves forward is an AIESEC that grows our impact. That we know how powerful one leadership development experience through exchange can be. So why wouldn't we want to do more for the world? And when you're LCP, it's an opportunity to make sure that your LC as leader of the LC and AIESEC in Australia as an NLT member can actually do that. And AIESEC 2020, the one that I mentioned before, it's already being embedded into the daily things that our LCs do. When we use AIESEC Hub, that's actually part of AIESEC 2020. When we implement customer flow for all of our like OGX customers, that's AIESEC 2020. AIESEC 2020 is not just a bunch of fancy statements. It's actually a plan. It's actually a bunch of projects, which we are already doing inside of our LC operations in order for the organization to be better in another 3 years' time. And in the Google Slides, I included the link so that you can find out more about AIESEC 2020 as well. And for the elections, sometimes it can be really easy to feel like, oh, like everyone's just kind of here to grill me, or like I really need to prove myself, or I need to hide my weaknesses or something like that. And all of you in stepping up, I want to congratulate you, because running for LCP is an opportunity to improve yourself. Not because you're not already good, because everyone has their strengths. You are here to be your best for AIESEC to be able to be its best. And the world deserves the best of AIESEC. The world doesn't deserve a half-hearted AIESEC, which, yeah, cool, I'll just do a few exchange and maybe I'll change some people's lives and that's fine. It really deserves AIESEC in the best of what it can be, because the more young people we engage and develop, the more we can say that our organization is making a contribution. Relevant in that it's what our country and our world needs, and also significant that we do enough of it that people actually notice us, that we do enough of it to make a stand of youth leadership development through exchange. We're not here to save the world. We just want to make sure that we can actually develop leadership through the exchanges that we do. This is one of my favorite quotes. If you've ever watched Princess Diaries, it features there as well, that courage is not the absence of fear, rather the judgment that something else is more important than fear. That running for LCP does not mean you don't get to feel scared, because it is scary when you put yourself on the line with your dreams and really try to be better for AIESEC. You stepping up means that you've decided that becoming the best you can be for AIESEC is something that's actually worthwhile doing. And for that, firstly, to congratulate you, and secondly, to ask you, if something else is more important than fear, then what is your something else? Yay! So that's the part where I finish talking in my huge chunks of talking, and it's an opportunity for all of you to ask the questions that you've had, either from the slides and the content themselves or just things that have been on your mind. So feel free to unmute and ask away.
I've got a question. In the video, how are the subcons related to, like, in NLP and LCP term?
Yep. So that's a really good question, because honestly, I didn't really understand subcoms that well until probably like 1 or 2 years ago. So not even when I was LCP. What you realize is that an organization needs to make like a lot of decisions in order to be better, in order to solve like bottlenecks that are currently there. What subcommittees are is that it gathers a group of people and it says, your job is to think about how to make this part of the organization better. So the subcoms that we have include exchange standards, include finance, include national meetings. So when you're part of that subcommittee, you're looking at this area of AIESEC in Australia, and saying, what are the changes we can make? Or in the case of the subcoms, you also carry out tasks as well. Like national meetings release all the conference bids and announce who the next host of the conference is going to be. And just like in global level, subcommittees are made up of MCPs actually. So these MCPs come together and they propose things. So when you go into legislation and you actually vote on decisions that you want to make AIESEC better, the subcommittee actually proposes them. For us in AIESEC in Australia, that's also what happens. Every time we have a conference, we have new motions that we want to talk about and discuss, and those come from the subcommittee. And it's being driven by a bunch of people who are actually going to make the votes as well. Does that answer your question?
Yep, it does. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks. Questions related to do with anything to do with LCP or the election process, anything at all?
I have a question to Jesse. How do you identify with PNF, and also when you are LCP, how do you drive the bigger picture of PNF into the LCP?
I think the most important thing is, at least for me, is to understand how people relate to PNF, because honestly, like peace and fulfillment of humankind's potential, it's a bit far for people to connect with. And the only reason why I connect to it so much now is because I've been in AIESEC for a while, and through AIESEC, I've gotten the chance to meet people from all around the world and really understand what kind of peace they need in their countries. So for example, this year, Duran, Ivan, Adi, and me, we went to Colombia for IC. And for them, PNF is so important because for the last 60 years, Colombia has had like this civil war between a rebel group and their government, and people were dying and all this shit was going down. And for them, peace was literally something that they desperately wished for in their everyday lives. So it's like, how can PNF not just become a really nice idea? How can it become stories that we can personally connect with? And I cared so much because like through AIESEC now, I'm close with a whole bunch of Colombians because they've been on my teams, because I've met them at certain times, because I know people who've gone and exchanged there. And it's just being able to make it really personal to people, whatever that personal factor might be. So that is how I connect with PNF, by making it personal. And that's how I kind of strive to be able to connect with other people on it, to find out what PNF actually means for each person.
Thank you.
No worries.
Here's another question.
Mm-hmm.
How do you want to work with the NLT, with the new NLT 2018?
Very nice question. Let's see. How do I want to work with the NLT 2018? For me, I really believe that an MC is here to be able to drive the entity towards the potential that it can reach through each and every LC. So what that means very tangibly is for the LCPs to be the NLT members who have that dedication and drive to make sure that their LC can actually reach its potential in that coming year. And remember, like, our job is not that we need to snap our fingers and tomorrow PNF is going to happen. We need to know what we actually want to achieve, what our contribution is going to be in a year. And I would love to be able to work with a group of LCPs as part of the NLT who know that, and to be able to play my personal role and also the MC's role in providing the right knowledge and attitudes and skills in order to drive the LCPs to do it. My MC Tweak, we are really, really clear on this idea that alone, we can't achieve anything, because the point of an MC is not to do leadership through exchange. It's to actually give LCs the capacity to be able to do it. So working with a bunch of really clear, driven people to be able to do that, we can kind of provide all of the background, knowledge, capacitation that kind of is needed to get there. Yeah. And I guess the final part of that is for everyone to really clearly be on the same page about where we want AIESEC in Australia to be. And that's what we're going to do in VidCon in December. Through all the LCs planning, we're then going to decide where is AIESEC in Australia going to head in 2018. And then for each person to have clarity that leading their LC is playing a contribution towards AIESEC in Australia that way. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Yay, I like these questions so far. Keep them coming.
Sorry, actually, follow-up question. What type of knowledge, attitude, and skills will the MC want to impart? Is it purely functional? Is it always related to strategy?
Okay, so I think there's a really cool formula that I always keep in mind, which is that to achieve a goal or an outcome, it's not about just striving for a number. So the first thing is always remembering that a goal, even if it appears as a number on a screen or in a PPT or in a butcher's paper that you put on the wall during your LC planning, whatever it is, that number, it represents something real. It represents the experiences that you want to create. And in order to get there, you need two things to achieve that goal. So goal equals task plus people. Task is everything that we do. It's our strategy. It's like, what is our marketing strategy? What is our strategy to improve our conversion rate? What is our strategy to, partner with this many companies? That is half of it. And then the other half is people. So it's this whole idea that whatever you need depends on your context, because you can't give the same formula in the same way to everyone. For example, if you're an incoming LCP, and for me, when I came in, I'm better at strategy than I am at people. So it doesn't make sense for me to only focus on strategy and expect that the goal is going to be there. I need to focus on the people. At the same time, if strategy is your strength, then you need to use it as your strength. So for me, it's because it's my strength, I want to use it. And I know that I need to do enough of the people side in order to make sure that the goal can be achieved, because just driving one is not going to work. And the same thing is true if it's on the other side of the spectrum. If you're someone who's great with people and you're not so great at strategy, keep doing your thing with people, because that is your strength. And then recognize what are the things that you need to do in order to boost your strategy up. So in terms of that question, when we talk about skills, knowledge, and attitude, it's more of a holistic thing. Because as an LCP, you need to have good leadership capacity. You need to inspire people to want to follow you, to have all the leadership qualities and be working on them. You also need good management skills, because even the most inspiring LCP cannot make PNF real if their LC does not deliver leadership development through exchange. So it's like whatever the LCPs and the LCs need, that is the thing that the MCs will help to support. Supporting you in doing what you're already good at and helping you be even better at it, and also supporting in the things that need to be boosted. Thank you. No worries.
Hi, Jesse. How are you?
Hello.
Just a really quick question. If you had a time machine and could go back in time to meet newly elected LCP Jesse, what would you tell her and why?
Cool. Nice. So am I allowed to say like a couple of things or like a few things?
Yes. Feel free.
Awesome. So one is related to my previous answer, which is don't be afraid to admit that you're a person who is naturally better with strategy over people. Because honestly, that's something I was a little bit scared about. I was like, oh my God, how can I be a leader if I'm not naturally good with people? Like I kind of beat myself up about it. And I would tell my former me to like chill out, because you do you and you do what works. And at the same time, keep working on the stuff that you know you need to improve. So don't feel bad about what you can do, and don't feel bad about what you can't do. Just keep using both of them and keep working on it. That's the first thing. The second thing is do not try and achieve everything. When I was back in Melbourne the other weekend, I found my LCP platform. And to be honest, I looked at that and I was like, holy shit, I was trying to achieve everything in 1 year. Like, I didn't realize at that point, my role is not to like make AIESEC like, oh my God, like out of this world better. PNF is already here on our doorstep. We don't need to have AIESEC after the year 2014. So I would tell myself, really understand what your LC is good at right now and continue that. And then choose one thing that you just really, really want to be able to change. And then my third thing is never ever forget why you ran for this position in the first place. And for me, it's because I wanted to make real impact. I wanted to see that sending people overseas or bringing people in was actually developing leadership. And always remember that those numbers you look at in every EBM, they actually mean something towards what you want. Because sometimes I just got so lost in just looking at numbers and it's like, oh my God, numbers this, numbers that, yeah, cool, that percentage, whatever, that I didn't always connect it directly with the thing that I cared about, which was making impact. So those are the three things. One, don't be afraid of your strengths. Two is focus and just choose one battle that you really want to fight and continue the rest. And three, oh my God, I just had a mind blank, even though I just said it. Interesting. Okay, honestly, I can't remember. Oh yeah, thank you. Yes, remember why you ran and connected always with the numbers. And that's why now as MCP, I'm actually excited by numbers, because I always connect it with the reason why I'm here. Yeah.
All right, thanks, Jesse.
Thank you for the question.
Hey Jesse.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to ask, what's your vision of the incoming NLT?
My vision of the incoming NLT?
Yes.
Like as a team, beyond what I said just then, because, okay, this is a bit of context for all of you to understand. Where we're moving AIESEC is that it's from the belief that AIESEC happens at the local level. So this is something that AI from 1617, they started to say, because LCs are the ones who actually make leadership through exchange happen. So then the concept is you start from what the LCs need to deliver for the community around them. Then you figure out what the entity, AIESEC in Australia, needs to do for that. And then when you have all the entities around the world knowing what they need to do for their reality, that's how you come up with a global direction. So that's kind of what we're moving towards. So with that, I can only say that the things that for me are quite non-negotiable is for an LCP as a member of the NLT to always strive to know really clearly what they want to achieve for their LC. And then for MC to play the role in like assisting them to get there, basically. So assisting can be many different things. Sometimes it's literally like, oh, I do run like a functional webinar for you to know how to do this thing. Sometimes it is like, we'll give you coaching and lead so that you can discover this thing for your own personal development so you can be a better leader. In terms of a vision for the NLT, that's what I really hope to see from LCPs, and for the MC playing our role in the NLT to be able to do that. I think the final part of that kind of question, and let me actually go back up to the slides, is for everyone to be able to really clearly understand what we're here to achieve at the end of the day. Because no matter how many nice things we say about AIESEC, and yes, we love the people in our LC, we love that we're growing from the challenges and everything, that ultimately AIESEC is here so that we can do leadership development through exchange. And my vision of an NLT is that kind of accountability towards making sure your own LC can achieve and making sure that you are supporting other LCs to be able to achieve that as well. So that's the only concrete thing that I really, really know. And where the NLT actually takes AIESEC in Australia, let's find out in December.
Thanks, Jesse.
All good.
Right, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So this is one of the confusion that I've had sometimes. But as an entity or as a local committee, are we providing leadership development to our customers, or are we providing it to our members, or is it both? And if it's both, so in particular for members, does it come down to what they can achieve or what they can develop?
Cool. So that's a very good question, because right now, AIESEC as an organization, we recognize that our products are our exchange products, right? So what that actually means is that we're taking a stand as an organization to say the main leadership we want to develop is actually through our exchanges. So do our members need to develop leadership in order to do that? Of course. And of course, like as members, we are volunteers for AIESEC. Like it's a significant commitment to actually give your time to AIESEC to do these sorts of things. And we really acknowledge that people really do invest a lot of time into AIESEC. So in order to have the volunteers who actually make leadership happen for young people through exchange, of course, it needs to be beneficial for us as members of AIESEC to be here. And if we want to develop leadership in other people, which is our customers, then of course we need to be developing leadership as well. We need to know how to develop leadership in order to get there. The interesting thing is though, is that even though the leadership qualities are the same, like world citizens, solution-oriented, empowering others, and self-awareness, the way we do it is very different, because our customers get their leadership development through doing GV, GT, and GE. We get our leadership development through running AIESEC as an organization. Like we're actually learning how to run a social enterprise and a not-for-profit here. So it's still leadership and it's still the same qualities. It's just that we are developing as members by actually running the organization. So for the final part of your question, whether it's about achievement or development, the most effective organization for their volunteers, their employees, whatever it might be, whoever works for them, actually achieves the development of their volunteers/employees by ensuring that they can achieve. My LC coach put it to me once, because I used to be VP IGT, right? So he's like, what is the difference between a member who like struggles to get like meetings and then learns a lot and is challenged and like, you know, learns all these things, versus a member who actually manages to realize like 10 EPs by the end of their term? And why he put it like that to me is he was showing me that achievement and development need to be linked, because you can bet that member who actually manages to realize 10 EPs, they're going to go through the same, if not more challenges than that member who struggled to get meetings. And actually, as team leaders of AIESEC, we are providing the best development experiences when we can really challenge our members. They're not here just to come to a few team meetings and try their hand out at a few things and not really getting somewhere. That sense of achievement and that actual achievement is just as important for developing our members. So we want to see that achievement and development are actually the same thing.
Cool, that makes sense. Thank you.
Awesome. No worries.
Backtracking to what you said before about like how you're a strategy person versus a people person, what are some of the like ways you kind of balance your strengths and weaknesses in your LCP term?
How I balance my strengths and weaknesses in my LCP term. So, I would say that strategy-wise, I was able to use it because, for example, I knew how to run an EBM. I generally knew how to run something like a planning. When I'm talking about operations with my VPs, then I know what questions to ask. And like I said in a previous answer, if I could change something, it's that I often felt bad about it. Like I would kind of be like, oh, what's the use if you know how to run an EBM if like you don't even know how to coach your VP? Like I would say these kinds of things to myself. So I would say that in reality, I wasn't so balanced because sometimes I was actually stopping myself from getting better at my strengths by just telling myself that I wasn't so good at the people side. From the people side, because I recognized it was something that I really needed to work on, I actually got a lot of help from my LC coaches in terms of they asked me and challenged me on a lot of questions about the things that I could do better. So I don't know how many of you like worked with Josh from the previous MC. Josh was actually my VP marketing when I was LCP. And if you know me and you know him and me were almost like opposite people. Like he's quite good with people and he's very like green in terms of his communication style. I'm very red. I'm more about strategy. And he was actually really important for my leadership development because through working with Josh, I had to understand that in order for us to achieve what we're here to do as an LC, I also need to get better at my people skills and working with people who are completely different from me to see how I can make sure that they can achieve what they're supposed to do. So I'm doing my job as an LCP. So it kind of came in those moments when I realized, hey, like this is actually quite challenging, except in order to achieve the goal, because goal equals to task plus people, that's when I need to work on the people side. And that's the point. Those were the points where I actually managed to balance it out a bit.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you. Can I get a bit of a sense of who might still be thinking of questions? I really like all the questions, by the way, super good. And I know sometimes it's a bit hard to like come up with them, so you might need some time. So it's 10:23 right now. I'm happy just to keep it open for like a couple more minutes if people still need to think. If you're actually all good, then you can say so, and then we can wrap up with the last few slides and everything. So just let me know where you're at.
Jessie, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see the non-OGV or non-IGT products to go in the year of 2018?
Okay, that's a really cool question. So for those of you who are aware of the current directions right now, as an entity, we're really heavily focusing on OGV. And because all of you are running to be LCPs, that's why I've just been really straight with the facts. This slide that I'm currently on is partially the reason why. Because right now, AIESEC in Australia, we've dipped from where we used to be. And OGV is the product that we're most successful in. And we really need to build ourselves back up so that we can deliver in other products. I can't tell you with certainty that, oh, by this day, this is what we're going to do with this product. I can tell you this, though, that when we think holistically for the organization, we need to remember that we're here to do leadership development through exchange. And like what I mentioned about focus, when we start from focusing on a couple of products, so right now for AIESEC in Australia, it's OGV mainly and also IGT, then we can build up our strength to do more. If you just look at our external markets, if you just look at all these other entities, especially in AP, GT and GE are actually products with really strong potential because of our system of education, because of the fact that like people really want to work in Australia. We can and should do these products in the future. For 2018, a lot actually depends on this summer peak. Because, for example, hitting 540 completes actually means that as an organization, we can be strong enough to start looking at other products in 2018. in terms of like really putting like quite a dedicated amount of like energy, resources, and attention into other products. And that's kind of like the way that I see it right now, in terms of we need to make sure we're strong enough to explore the potential that we know we have in other products. Does that answer your question?
Yep, thank you.
Cool. Awesome. And that's a really good question as well, because I think in the LCP application, at least for some of the LC specific questions, it actually asks some of you to think about the growth paths of your products. Never feel pressured like you need to grow each product to a crazy extreme in just 1 year, because this organization as like a global thing has been around for like 70 years now. And actually, we only started with one kind of product, which is more like the GT kind of products. And as we've gotten stronger as an organization, that's when we've introduced more products. So you can think about, where's my LC at? What does it really make sense for us to do? And then kind of take it from there if you're putting yourselves into like a LCP long-term growth kind of perspective.
Sorry, another question.
No worries.
I think this is a question that always occurs during LCP and MCP elections, which is like, how do you sell exchange if you've never been on one? And how would you go about dealing with that sort of like question?
So it's pretty interesting, because I am in that position in that I haven't been on an AIESEC exchange yet, and I can't wait to go on one once my MCP term has finished. And if you go back to this slide that I had previously, you'll notice that it emphasizes on belief in the product. Because the thing is it great to have experienced the product yourself? Absolutely. That's why we talk about IXP. That's why we really believe that, for example, if your LC has had people who've been on an exchange and really understand the power of it, even if their exchange was not so great, they understand why exchange needs to improve in certain ways, but that really adds towards your ability to be able to tell about this product. I'm very lucky that I've had friends in AIESEC who have had quite powerful exchange experiences for one way or another. And I can see through that my own belief in this product, or why this product needs to change to make sure that more leadership development can be introduced to more people. So that is the key. It's about the belief in the product. So it is great to have experienced the product and be able to tell your own story. It does not mean that you don't believe in the product and you can't sell it if you haven't experienced it for yourself yet. Actually, an interesting fact is the last few presidents of AIESEC International, they've all been at AIESEC for like 6 or 7 years, and a whole bunch of them have also not yet been on their own exchange. And you can clearly see from the fact that they became president of AIESEC International, this definitely does not mean that they don't have belief in the product. Otherwise, they wouldn't stick around for this long. And it doesn't mean that they can't grow the product in their entities as well, which so many of them actually do. So it's being able to recognize that belief is the key thing. And if you don't have that experience of yourself, to be able to really invest yourself into the experiences that you know that happen and be able to use that as your leverage point when you're driving yourself and the people around you to actually sell these products every day.
Thanks.
No worries. Okay, let's do one more question and then I'll wrap up the rest of the slides. So who will be the lucky last question for this space? Because you can always feel free to reach out. I don't know if the event, like if it just stays and notifications continue to pop up, because we can just use that as like a candidate group maybe, or we can create a subgroup or something. Still, we have time for one more question for this webinar. I don't know if I hear someone unmuting or if that's just breathing. Oh, okay. Someone was talking and then cut off. Hello?
No, that was an accident. That was an accident.
Okay. No worries. Anything? Just give me a shout out if you're good.
I have a question.
Mhm.
What was it like being waterport and realize you've been given the opportunity to lead your LC for the coming year?
Cool. I think that leads me very nicely onto this wrap-up slide. Honestly, at that point in time, after becoming elected as LCP, I was just like, shit, there's so many things that I can do now, that I have so much privilege to be able to like lead this LC and lead us to do something that's very real, to actually drive AIESEC to make PNF real. I think at that time, and this is me personally, I wasn't thinking a lot about that responsibility. Because what does responsibility look like when you don't think about it every day? It means, as an LC, let's just say you set a goal. Let's just say you set an exchange goal of like 100. And everyone's like, yeah, 100, cool. 100 experiences, 100 this and that. And then you get a few weeks into semester and you're like, oh no, I don't think we're going to hit 100 anymore. Let's, yeah, I mean, it's fine, right? I mean, it's not about the numbers. It's okay. Yeah, I mean, let's just go with whatever we do. And why I mentioned that is because I definitely found myself at points in the term where I was super stressed out because it looked like we weren't going to hit our numbers. And we didn't hit all of our numbers. And for me, like having that responsibility to be like, you know what, from the start, we said this is what we want to do. And that is not just a number that we all scream and shout about. It's actually a responsibility for us to get there because that's how many experiences we've promised that we need to make. That I think that is the thing that was kind of lacking. And the thing I was mainly thinking about is like, oh, it's so cool. So, I mean, I can't really say, oh, I would go back and change it in that sense. It's just, I think I had half of what it really means to be LCP on mind when I had that water poured and when I first thought about what it meant to be LCP. Okay, so that was the last question. I'm going to wrap it up now. Again, always feel free to approach if you have more. So it's like what I said, right? Like you have great power as an LCP and you are pouring out all of your dreams into your platform, into the election day, into everything that you're going to do between now and when that water pouring announcement is going to come. And if you're the lucky person who gets that water poured on you and the LC trusts you to take things forward, you have that responsibility. That responsibility does not mean you need to be perfect. It does not mean people do not expect you to make mistakes. It just means that you always need to do your best to make sure that you come in with the right expectations. I'm here to do real shit. You're making grounded decisions because you actually know the context of the organization and you're having that focus in order to drive it home. Being LCP, you will be a CEO of a not-for-profit social enterprise because that's what AIESEC is. You'll be the CEO for your LC. You'll be one of 14 CEOs in AIESEC in Australia, and you'll be a CEO of AIESEC globally to deliver in your local committee and in AIESEC in Australia what we're here to do as AIESEC. Driving relevance, leadership that means something, and significance that is big enough to actually make a dent for youth leadership through exchange. That's what it boils down to with all of the implications that come behind it. And yay, that's all, folks. That is the webinar for tonight. Thank you so much for attending, for asking your questions. I really hope you got something useful out of it. And I hope that you are able to use these slides as a point of reference throughout, especially when it comes to the data and how you think about how you want to structure your answers, how you want to actually bring your LC and AIESEC in Australia forward. And yeah, that's all for tonight. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jesse.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Awesome.
Thanks, Jesse.
You're welcome.
Thanks,
Super
Jesse.
excited for all of you.
Jesse.
Ooh, and Tracy is here. So yes, you can chat to her as well. Yay, and Maggie is here too. And Philip, yay, awesome. Nice, good stuff. Yes, I did enjoy the questions. I know, it's great. Good times. Wow, Maggie. Oh, I thought you were referring to my voice. Oh my God. Yes, yes. The current LCPs say that I have like a soothing voice. God damn. Okay, cool. Is everyone who's staying around like wanting to talk more or ask questions? Because you have those current LCPs here.
Yeah, is Philip, Tracy, and Maggie still here? Yeah, boy. Am I louder now?
Tracy, I think it's your problem.
Oh, okay. I was wondering if you guys can give us some more insight into regional collaboration of New South Wales, since you guys are all from there, or all three of you, and in particular, what kind of next steps you guys were hoping for the next generation to implement, if you have any good ideas. Or should we just stay at con, ROPS, etc.? Damn it. Damn it. Damn it.